I'm a card-carrying economist. I admit that I suffer from tariff derangement syndrome. Wanted to get your sense of what you thought of this.
Right.
And in particular, they seem to change their tariff policy from time to time. Do you think there's a method to that, what looks to me like madness?
We all hope so, right? All right, well, first off, let me just tell you how I come to how I believe about all these things. So I grew up in the Midwest, born to a single mom. I have an adopted father. My parents, we lived in public housing. And I grew up in a country where my parents could legitimately tell me I could be anything. I did everything your parents would tell you not to do. I've worked every day of my life. I had a job starting at 7 years old. I tell my grandkids that if you don't have a job, you're unemployed. I don't care how old you are. You need to start making money. I built my first business after I got out of the Navy. I joined the Navy at 18. Was a donut shop. I bought for $7,500. Eventually I built a company that I had 285,000 employees, and then I did a bunch of manufacturing companies. So my theories about all this stuff is I believe the most important thing you do is get somebody a job. It's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Get somebody to work. If you have parents without a job, it's a crappy life. If you don't have a job and you need money, it's a crappy life. So that's how I think about this. So here's how I just got back from Europe. I went to visit Denmark, Finland, and Estonia last week. And of course, all the political leaders ask about Donald Trump. And I said, in my opinion, there's 2 things that he's telling the world. Number 1, if you want the American military to be your backstop, we're going to be your backstop. We're not going to be your front line of defense. You're going to have to put up your own money. You're going to have to put your men and women at risk before you're going to get American troops and American money. That's number 1. Number 2 is the American worker is not going to be disadvantaged any longer. Now, I think part of it is going to be tariffs. Part of it is going to be just all the stupid rules that are out there that make it difficult for an American worker to be able to sell their products and services in another country. So I believe in free trade. I'll go compete with anybody. I'm a business guy. Tell me what the rules are. I'll do my best to try to win. And I think that's what the American worker is like. But you can't have a policy where because of some regulation or some permit or some of this, some of that, you can't even sell our stuff. So I think that's what this is. So my approach is because I'm a deal guy. I've always done deals all my life. Is I told people, here's what I can do. If you'd like to do business with me, if you can't, that's fine with me. I understand. My approach would be, look, I want the American worker to sell more stuff. So lower your tariffs, lower your barriers, get rid of all of it. I'll give you an example. Probably the biggest employer in Vietnam called me 2 months ago, an American company. And he said, I'm scared to death of all these tariffs. He probably has more jobs in Vietnam. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Vietnam than anybody else. I said, tell the Vietnamese government to get rid of every barrier there is. Because then if Donald Trump, he can't say that it's unfair to an American worker, so how's he going to do it? He can't talk about tariffs, he can't talk about barriers, he can't talk about anything. And why would they have any protection policies? So that's the approach I would take. So that's what that's how I explained it in Europe, because they all ask about it. And I also actually believe that we are slowly going to divide ourselves into 2 economies. We're going to have the bad guy economies of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, and we're going to have the good guys economy. The people believe in free markets and free trade and freedom and democracy. And that's what's going to happen. It's happening in a variety of ways slowly, but that's what's going to happen, in my opinion.
Right now, we don't actually have tariffs on Russia and Korea, although we have them on almost every other country in the world. But just to try to pursue that deal guide, there's another way of getting to a deal. There was something called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, under which Vietnam got rid of all of its tariffs, Japan got rid of all of its tariffs, and President Trump pulled us out of that. Hillary Clinton was also against it. There was a free trade negotiation with Europe, which was most of the way to a 0-for-0 deal. And both of those happened without, $6 trillion being wiped off the stock market and every forecaster saying the unemployment rate is going to go up. Why would you encourage him to go that route?
Well, my encouragement is what I've talked to the White House, and I said, first off, say what your standard is, right? My standard is I want the American worker to sell their stuff. Don't put any barriers on us. We won't put any barriers on your country's workers. So that's what I would do. So I don't know if it's better to do a big deal like that or individual deals, but I would make it as simple as that. That happened just before I got to the Senate, because it happened, right when Trump first came in 17. The one thing that Obama did, which I pushed for really hard, it was the free trade agreement with Colombia. Mm-hmm. So for Florida, I was governor of Florida for 8 years. I did trade missions all over the place to try to get more jobs, and that was a big deal for us. It's to this day, today, now it's the biggest trading partner Florida has. Now, if they continue to elect people like Petro, it's going to go away. But right now, it's still, I actually think it's a bigger trading partner than Brazil now. When I left office, it was.
China's more complicated. We're both free trade when it comes to Europe, when it comes to Colombia. China's a competitor, a rival in a way that those economies aren't. How do you think we should be dealing with them? What should we be trying to get out of this? Them to reduce their barriers so we can sell more and be more integrated, or try to de-link? And at what pace can we de-link?
So here's my theory about China. I don't want to go to war. I don't like war. I served in the military. I didn't go to Vietnam. I served during Vietnam. But I think the only way we don't go to war with China is if their economy is demolished. Because I think if they have the money, we're going to war. If Russia has more money, they're going to keep expanding. They're going to do more. It's just who Putin is and who Xi is, and maybe it's who their government is. So my belief is we should do no trade with China. We should say today, you guys lie, cheat, and steal. Think about it. They're creating precursors that kill 78,000 Americans a year with fentanyl. They've never complied with the World Trade Organization. They don't comply with the terms of most favored nation. They don't comply with the Trump trade deal. There's not one thing they've complied with. So now if I did a deal with you and you lied to me, you think I'd do the second deal with you? No. I'd say, I don't want to do a deal with you. I don't trust what you're doing. I don't trust anything she says or does. I've got a friend in prison right now in China because he ran the newspaper in Hong Kong that talked about who she was. Jimmy Lai. He's been in solitary confinement for 4 years. That's what China is. So when I got to the Senate, I've been there 6 years now and 3 months, we bought 85% of the drones our federal government bought from China. Would you do that with your enemy? They decided to be our enemy. So it took me 5 years to just get the military not to buy them. It took me 6 years to finally our government, and now within 12 months, there will be no new Chinese drones licensed in this country. Our military still buys almost all of its drugs from China. Now that's stupidity. I mean, that is our logical, that's who's decided to be our enemy. This stuff's got to stop. Every time you buy anything from China, you're helping their government build a military to take away your freedoms. That's exactly what they're doing. They've already built, they have more ships than we do, they have more submarines than we do, they have a bigger military. They want to go to war with us. They want Taiwan. Taiwan is not part of China. Look at history. Taiwan was not, very small part of history was Taiwan part of China. But they're gonna do it. They're taking away the sovereignty, the Philippines. Those shoals are not they never were part of China, but they're doing that. So they are a despicable government. Not the people, the government is despicable.
Would we be paying a cost if we try to make them poorer as our strategy? And is that a cost that's worth paying for a greater good of national security?
I think long term. I mean, what's more important to me than anything else is my freedom. I mean, freedom of this country, the freedom to do what I want to do, that's more important to me than anything else. So the fact that, it's going to be difficult to decouple, yeah, it's going to be difficult to decouple. We don't have a choice, but we do not have a choice but to decouple.